Today I'm going to go over a dynamic barbell high pull. This is something you see very commonly as a very necessary step in learning your Olympic lifts. This is although it's a fairly basic aspect of that training, the benefit of doing this by itself in terms of power development and learning the Olympic lifts is paramount. This is a very, very useful lift for two reasons. Because like I said, by itself it's valuable, but it's also a really necessary progression to learn Olympic weightlifting. So kind of the way I like to talk about this and share this is that your starting position is the same as your end position, because now we have, I call it targeting. You have a place where you know you need to get to. Right? You heard the term like greasing the groove or whatever, because once you learn the movement, it's more likely you're going to stay in that movement pattern. And it's more likely you're going to learn the movement pattern if you know where you should end up in that movement pattern. So I'm saying that because the first example is really showing you that position of takeoff. And that's because it's the same position as essentially your landing. Okay? And what I always tell people too is, this position is very familiar to most people. They just typically don't have a bar in their hand. So for example, in pretty much any sport where you're going to jump vertically, right, and not so much horizontally like long jump and track and field, but basketball, volleyball, jumping up for catch a frisbee, whatever it may be, the position, right, is you see a person running towards something or they step up to something like do a dunk, right, we go step, step, hands, throw, bam, and they get into this position because this is where we change direction. Like I call this a position of power. Okay, so that position we hear the term hang clean. Well, that's the same place we take off from, right here. Okay, we go. Whoo, we just happen to have a bar in our hands. Okay, so I'm going to pull and go right back to that position. Okay, so that's why your starting point is your end. Right. That some principles we definitely want to maintain, right? I don't want to be out on my way to my toes, okay? I'm not weight on my heels. I want you to think when we jump, we throw our hands down in position, you kind of want to think that your feet spread apart and we get as much surface area as we can on that ground. Bam! We're nice and rigid right here, because when the hips load like this, we want the opposite direction to be vertical displacement. So I don't want to be on my toes, I don't want to be on my heels, I want to be like feet spread out, vertical pull, okay? The thing too is on this, there's a real habit of rotating, trying to think I'm going to pull and pull that bar upon me, okay? If you were to stand palm back, okay, and squeeze your glutes, lift your hands as high as you can without shrugging, okay? You can see as I turn, it's almost like I'm on like a wall here. Okay, that's as high as my hands are going to go in this movement. So from this position here, bam, and put it back. Okay, my hands reach the apex of the pull at the same moment that my glutes finish the contraction. Okay, and at that point they reverse at the same time. My glutes come back, my hands go back to the takeoff position. Okay, so that's why I say your start is your finish. So that's without a bar. We understand position. I don't want to get into rotation. I don't want to get into a shrug. That's the one thing we're going to omit from this. Because when we get to the Olympic side, right, well, I would say as we pull, we dynamically pull into a shrug position. Absolutely we want to do that. Okay, but I want to avoid getting into that, okay Jeff, well I've shrugged, but I'm starting to rotate, because this pulls a lot of power into that rotation position. So essentially what I'm doing instead is I'm going to pull with a glute squeeze, and I'm pulling, but I'm not letting myself go into a shrug and rotate. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So it's like, what's the exact? Simply put, okay, if you start going into rotation, what we've done is loosen the trap, which is allowing that movement. So I want to stay rigid and down still, and I'm boom, pull, push, without going into a shrug, right? So this is what it'll look like without the shrug, and which is what I was saying, it's just a dynamic high pull, no shrug. Okay, so simply put, once I lift the bar up, I set my hand position, as you can see, just outside my hips. Okay, I'm not out here working on a snatch, right? Snatch high pull, okay? Right outside, basically again, where I would jump, boom, but there's a bar, okay? So from that position, load with my glutes, my hips are hinging, okay? And then from here, it's a load, lats down, pull, right back to its beginning point, right? I can take a deep breath, hinge, 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 pull and push, okay? Go back up, take a breath, right? And then from here, if I'm stable, I can go right into it. And pull right in, okay? Keep the bar nice and close because we're not pulling the bar out, okay? We are keeping the bar as close to as we can because we're thinking vertical displacement, okay? The bar is going as vertical as possible, and so is my contraction. Don't let the bar carry out, okay? Try to avoid rotation and going into the catch phase. Your feet position is the same position you're going to take off on the squat, okay? Keep these simple principles in mind because all we're doing is dissecting some of these movements, but as you realize when you reassemble them, there's going to be a lot of similarities, okay? Good hand position, good foot position, stay vertical, right? Let your starting position be your finish, and that is the dynamic barbell high pull.